I met her mother at the Genesee County Compassion Club, where I'm a card-carrying member. And I expressed to Alex when she told me she wrote for the Michigan Times. I said, well, I used to edit the student newspaper at the U of M Flint when it was called The Word. It was a mimeographed, I think, 8-sheet publication back in the early 60s. And I thought how much it would thrill me to be invited to my alma mater sometime around the occasion of my 50th anniversary of my graduation with an A.B. in English literature in January of 1964. So somehow she arranged this, and I want to thank her profusely for doing so. Yeah, thanks. I'm really happy to be here. When I was a student at U of M Flint, of course, we had one building over on the junior college campus. It was a junior college then, I guess you call it, what, Mott now? Mott was still alive then. I used to live here on Kersley Street, 923 East Kersley, with Wyman Woodard, the organist from Owasso. And we would be walking to campus across to the one building of the University of Michigan-Flint. We had 550 students, and we would see C.S. Mott driving his light blue Corvair on East Kersley Street going to his office in the morning. Wow, guy should be driving the Cadillac. So it's a thrill for me also to have with me today my daughter Sunny and my granddaughter Beyonce. I wanted them especially to come today. Give them a little hand if you would. I thought it would be kicks for them to hear me talk about my time here in Flint, because we don't really sit around the dinner table and talk about the old days. We're usually talking about the ball game, what's in the New York Times today, or what's going to happen next week.
The Tigers.
Yeah. Hopefully we're clinched tonight. Of course, we've said that for the last few nights. But I don't know, I come to Flint quite a bit for me now because of Ben Horner and the Michigan Medical Marijuana Report, for which I write a monthly column. And I'm a member of the GC3. And last summer, Ben and I had some conversations about what were some of the things that were great about the old days. And I said, well, the greatest thing was free concerts. So he organized a free concert, and I came up with that. And I used to play at the Churchill Club on Saginaw Street with a great band based on the pier called Globe. So that's my contemporary connection to Flint. It always gives me such good feelings to be here. I had such a great time when I was a student here at the University of Michigan-Flint College, and before that when I was a high school student at Davison High School. And I would have my dad's Buick at my disposal, and I could drive into Flint. My dad worked for Buick on Hamilton Avenue. He worked for Buick for 43 years, as a matter of fact. But I spent the happiest times of my childhood, my teenage years, driving around Flint, from drive-in to drive-in, and teen club to teen club, out to the dances at the Mount Morris roller rink. These things give me a lot of pleasure. I know that doesn't mean anything to you, but I'm just riffing on this. I'm enjoying myself, if you'll allow me. I was born here next Wednesday. It'll be 72 years ago at a place that no longer exists called Women's Hospital. Every time my kids and I get in this vicinity, we have to stop and have a Halo burger, because I've been eating Halo burgers since I was 5 years old, and they're called QBs, not quarter pound, but QBs. My mother used to bring me to the YMCA, I think it was on Kersley, I can't remember exactly where. Around the corner, though, was the QBs, so my reward for taking my swimming lesson was to go and have a deluxe with olives, cream ale, which I enjoy as much today as I did when I was 5. I could go on forever. What are we supposed to do?
To go on, please. Or
you don't mind?
We could ask some questions, but why don't you go on and then stop?
Okay. Well, I graduated from Davison High School in 1959, and I attended Albion College for 2 years. And during that period, I became interested in the civil rights movement, and I started listening to jazz. And I got interested in beatnik poetry by Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg and Lawrence Ferlinghetti, and the writings of Kerouac and William S. Burroughs. I got on the road when I was just turning 16 when it came out in September of 1957. And that was also where I got turned on to the idea of smoking marijuana. But you couldn't find any. It took me several years to find some, but I finally, I know that's hard to think now. This, of course, was back in the day when marijuana was classified by the state of Michigan as a narcotic, if you can imagine that. And there was a 10-year penalty for possession, or if you gave somebody some joints, like I was once accused of, you faced a 20-year mandatory minimum sentence with a maximum of life. This is for weed. But I had my first joint here in Flint. I had just I went away to college at Albion College, and I got interested, like I said, in the civil rights movement. And of course, this was 1959 to 61, when the student protest movement was starting in the South, the sit-ins at the lunch counters and the attempts to integrate public facilities and public transportation that had been kicked off by the Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott of 1955, and the heroic work of Miss Rosa Parks, Reverend Martin Luther King, and the whole Southern Christian leadership movement. And all what, I guess you have to say this, because it's not broadcast too widely today, but America was a segregated society at that time. They had different laws for black people and white people until 1965, when they passed the Civil Rights Act. A black doctor couldn't be a member of the American Medical Association. A black lawyer couldn't be a member of the American Bar Association. And this was at the top, so the people at the bottom, they were really in a big world of trouble. So this is why people banded together and started the civil rights movement to gain their civil rights as American citizens. And I was at Albion College, and I was a member of a fraternity. And the fraternities were all segregated. And in fact, I went to a college, there were 2 black students at Albion College. Of course, they were both on athletic fellowships. So there wasn't really an integration threat, but ideologically, this issue was so vast in the minds of the students. The fraternity I was in was wrestling with the pressure being put on the national fraternity office to allow black members. And they devised some sort of trickeration, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would call it. So that if you were forced to accept a black fraternity member at a certain college, that chapter could disaffiliate itself with the national office so that the national office would not have its honor sullied. And they had the chapters would have meetings to discuss these things and how they were going to implement it. And I went to one of these meetings and I became so enraged. And after the meeting, my fraternity brothers who I lived with, and they were my friends, and they were parading through the house singing, "There'll never be a nigger Sigma Nu." And I said, well, I'm getting the fuck out of here. This is it for you and Albion College. One thing about Albion College, it was a Christian college, you know, as you can hear so far. And they had the requirement that you had to go to chapel once a week, and you had to go to what they call convocation once a week, and usually that was some kind of Protestant minister telling you what to do. Well, the sick thing about this, I mean, not that it wasn't sick in and of itself to require students to do something like this, but if you missed your chapel attendance more than 3 times in one semester, they started deducting 1 credit hour from your transcript for every 2 sessions that you missed. Well, I poo-pooed this when I was a student there, but then I wanted to get out of there, so I decided I wanted to come back to my parents lived in Davison, and I wanted to be in an urban environment, and Flint was kind of booming in those days. They had 2 or 3 shifts in the factories, they were making cars left and right with all the different brands that were centered here, not to mention Fisher Body, that made the bodies for all the different GM cars. Turnstead, Delco battery, they had all these different things that were based here. It was huge. So there was quite an urban environment with stores that were open and places to go at night and stuff like that. Some people will remember that. And so that's where I wanted to be. And I had become a jazz lover and a poet while I was an undergraduate at Albion, although there was very little local stimulation. I got it all from books and records and trips to Detroit to jazz at the minor key and places like that. So I started thinking about this stuff, and images start popping up in my mind. I get transfixed. I was thinking of where I first went to hear jazz every night. It was a place called the Sports Bar. It was in an alley behind Saginaw Street. And a great musician who recently passed away named Sherman Mitchell, he had the gig there. And that's where I would go and listen to jazz and see what it was all about, or how they did it, what the people were getting. Maybe I'd hang out with the guys, maybe you get to smoke a joint in the alley, between sets, with the bass player, you know, the drummer. So it was my introduction to a whole way of life that I embraced wholeheartedly. I started writing poetry when I was a student here. Oh, I brought that up about the chapel to say that when I decided that I should continue my education in Flint at the University of Michigan-Flint College, which I wanted to do rather than go to Ann Arbor just because of the urbanity of Flint. I wanted to be here, at a ghetto. Where the people who knew what was happening were situated at, you know, what the music was and everything. So I went to enroll here in the U of M Flint, and they said, well, your transcript is missing a few credits. And I said, what do you mean? I had good grades. I mean, you know. They said, no, something about this chapel convocation. They stripped off a certain number of hours. So I couldn't transfer into a junior year, and I had to go to the Flint Junior College for a semester. And that was even fun. I met Lyman Woodard there, who became one of my closest friends for all of life. He's gone now, but he was a great musician and a great human being, and one of my closest friends, and I met him in the student union there at the Flint JC. They used to have I met Woodard because they had a part of the student union that they called the Crow's Nest, and that's where the black students congregated. And Woodard and I were the only two persons of the Caucasian persuasion who hung out in Crow's Nest. So naturally, I got to know him right away because there we were, you know. Woodard was known. I knew about him when I was in high school. He used to play the piano, and he played with band. He didn't really have too many bands in the 50s, you know. And Woodard played in a band that they had in Flint. He was the piano player, and he was known all over town among the hipper set as the kid from Owasso who could play all the Little Richard piano solos, note for note, even the mistakes. These are some of my great memories of being here. When I started studying poetry seriously, you could go to the library of the college and they had Evergreen Review, which was the leading magazine